And today we have with us two very special guests from the School of Architecture at Syracuse University. We have Professor Lawrence Davis. Professor Davis is an associate professor and the undergraduate chair at the School of Architecture at Syracuse University. Professor Davis pursued his Bachelor of Architecture from University of Cincinnati and his Master's of Architecture from Columbia University. Professor Davis is also a registered architect and maintains active practice. And today we are going to learn about the structure of an architecture degree in the US, and of course more details about that. And he's also going to share with you about what all career options you have upon graduation. And joining Professor Davis is Ms. Victoria Bukina, who is the Assistant Dean of Management at the School of Architecture at Syracuse University. So very warm welcome to both of you. We are very excited for this session, and we are looking forward to learning more about architecture from you, Professor Davis. Over to you, Professor Davis.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us. Victoria and I are really delighted to be here. I'm going to give you a sort of general, fairly quick introduction to everything. And then if you're still continue to be interested in Syracuse architecture and of course Syracuse University, Victoria is really the one who will be the key person that you'll be interacting with, she and people in her office, and getting you prepared to make a great application. And she's fantastic at that. I mean, she's very, nothing but praise there. So anyway, let's get going so that we can have some time for questions and things like that. Now you see everything, fantastic. Anyway, like I said, I'm part of a really great team of people, particularly administrators, headed by our dean, Michael Speaks, Julia Zerniak, the associate dean, Victoria Bucina, who is here today, our assistant dean of enrollment management, myself, and then Dana McQuillan, maybe another person you interact with if you come into the school and visit.
Yeah. Okay, Professor Davis, I think we can see the presentation, but I think you are on mute right now. So.
Okay,
Perfect.
just to get into it. All right. One of the questions was, what were the trends in architecture? And I think one of the biggest things you have to understand is architecture is one of the oldest occupations ever. I mean, we've been making built environments as long as we've had civilizations in this world. And so in some ways, it's a very timeless kind of activity, right? It's as old as our need for religion and institutions, and certainly shelter, and thinking about it in a conscientious way has been, almost ingrained in our humanity. And so I think that's really a beautiful thing. Obviously, monuments are things that we are always frequently seeing in pictures and in our history, but also see if I can get this. Also, the background of our lives is affected by architecture. This is a scheme by a firm in France, Lacaton Vassal, a husband and wife team, who take old concrete frame buildings and then reoccupy them with very many different kinds of functions and also sort of energy friendly solutions to try and reuse, if you will, our environment in a very intelligent way, and sort of re-understand how the background and the patterns and the rhythms of our life are very important. Of course, it's very important too that architecture is connected with the contemporary world, right? Both, as I said just in the previous slide, in an ecological way. Obviously, we want to preserve as much of the planet as possible, but also, let's say, relative to sort of high-tech techniques and the representation of those kinds of techniques. So this is a computer-generated opera house in China by a firm called MAD, M-A-D. And it's an example of a kind of parametric structure that was totally generated, conceived through, sort of the most advanced techniques in computer-aided design. So there's a lot of interesting things that are happening right now, but at the same time, we always have sort of one foot in this deep, deep history of architecture. And so I think that's really what's exciting about, this kind of complexity is quite exciting about architecture. Well, this is not the right thing here, sorry. A couple of things, one of the questions was, what are some of the characteristics of a successful architect? I think you need to be a kind of global thinker. And what does that mean? A lot of what we do, like reading and mathematics and let's say even sort of organizing things, are very linear, right? You do this and then you do this and then you do this. We do that, but we also bring in other things. And so the process of design frequently means that we are going around in a kind of forward moving circle, if you will. I like to think of it. And so being able to bring together and synthesize many things is very important. This, of course, if you're curious about many subjects and many things in school, that's also extremely helpful. I like to say we are kind of radical generalists. We really like doing a lot of different things and being interested in a lot of different things in order to solve the problems that we have to solve. There are, you know, the good architect is both artistic and analytic. They use their artistic talents, but they're informed by their analytic skills. They're creative. I think to paraphrase a quote I heard once is like, you know, creativity is one of those things that we take for granted, but it's actually one of the most important things in our lives that keeps us moving forward as a society. And so, you know, we're right in the middle of all that. Architects, because they have to do something from nothing, oftentimes, you know, you have to be able to take initiative, to sort of take the bull by the horns, as we say here. But I think that really be able to work hard and sort of imagine what's needed in the next step. The other thing you need to do is be a hard worker. I think generally a lot of this, you know, there's the old saying, it's 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. I think that's very true. I think too, you have to enjoy the process of going forward and designing and redesigning. It's a very iterative process. Your first attempt frequently needs work. It needs to keep moving forward, make some changes. And so your ability to take constructive criticism from yourself and from others, from your teachers, from, you know, maybe your supervisor at work, is a very important thing. You can't be too sensitive. You have to say, oh yeah, this thing needs to be made better. I need to work on it a little more. It's not a personal thing. It's just how we're making this building design better, let's say. And again, I think you have to be highly motivated and resilient. Again, because you're making something from nothing, from a blank piece of paper or a blank screen. You're trying to imagine what would come together to inform the making of a particular design. Some of the career options, I think the most obvious is, of course, being a licensed architect. Something like 80% of our graduates become architects. In the environmental design fields, we have other kinds of options. A lot of our graduates go on to get involved in urban planning, urban design, interior design, landscape design. There's also allied design fields like industrial design, graphic design, and virtual design. And by that, I mean, you know, the design of virtual environments and gaming environments and other kinds of things. We have a fair number who go into construction management because they're very interested in the technical, constructive side of things. And frequently those companies need an architect. And then finally, we have some that are interested in real estate and the fact that selling and buying land and property and the thoughtful development of that property, architecture can be extremely valuable in that process too. So it's a really sort of base degree that can be used in ways that can connect to many other kinds of activities. And again, we also have people who've gone on and become lawyers and doctors and people like that, because this was just a really good education to have as an undergraduate that helps you learn how to solve problems and do all those things I said in the previous slide, because it really encourages those things. So even if you didn't become an architect or any of these things, it's a fantastic degree to have. A little bit about becoming an architect in the United States, and I'm speaking only in Canada, but I'm only speaking of those two countries. It's a little different in Europe, and I know in other parts of the world. Certainly, it used to be divided into three main sections or segments. One was your education, another was a kind of internship experience, and then you took the exam. Now they're kind of weaving them together. So the boundary between those three stages is now becoming more less distinct, that you can actually start your experience before you finish your education, and that you can even start taking parts of the exam. You don't have to take the whole thing all at once while you're still doing your experience period of your development. And then once you get through all those things, you finish the ARE, which is the Architectural Registration Exam, you're now certified by the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards to apply for a license in a state that you will practice in. That's how that works, so that you'll keep getting re-registered every few years in the given state, like New York State or California or Massachusetts or what have you. Most people don't get registered in every state. That would be very expensive, and there's no reason really to do that. Usually you get registered in the state or states where you have the most activity in your firm. There are a couple different ways to get or three different ways, really, main ways to get your education piece in that sequence. One is to get a conventional Bachelor of Arts or Science degree, and then go for 3.5 years, and then get the professional piece of it and get an M.Arch degree. The other is to go through a sort of program where they're frequently linked, where the first 4 years have some architecture in it, but it's still a Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science degree. And when you have that degree, you cannot sit for the exam yet, because it's not a professional degree yet. And then you get 2 more years of an M.Arch degree. Or you can take, as we have here, a Bachelor of Architecture degree in 5 years. And at the end of 5 years, which is the least amount of time in any three of those options, you can then, start doing your experience credit, or, well, you may have started it already, but you've got that piece over with, and you can actually sit for your exam or start beginning to take parts of your exam much quicker. So we like to think that this is a good option. The reason it's 5 years instead of 4 years, which is a question we sometimes get, is because there are a lot of professional requirements in the curriculum that we have to meet. I'll show you those in a minute. But we also want to make sure that there's a good segment of your experience, at least 25–30% of your coursework is in the arts and science. You're still getting that Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science experience. At Syracuse, for instance, you're getting a, and this will probably be best shown by the next slide here, you're getting a really, really good professional education that's really valued across the world, even in a very good university, in a classic liberal arts context. And so we think this combination, while it's not the only school that does it, we probably do it as well, if not better than anyone else, particularly for our undergraduates. And you get obviously a great professional experience, but you get this classic American college experience, which probably is more than just living at home and going to school and then coming back home in the evening, as a lot of universities are across the world. But you're actually in residence, you're with a community of other people your age, and you develop a kind of set of connections that last your entire life, as well as learn about how to think about the world in a very broad way, using critical thinking, research techniques, not just for architecture, for everything. And in fact, you can bring some of those ideas that you might get in your other classes into your architecture, which make it even more exciting. Syracuse University has been doing this, as the slide says, since 1870. And I think it's really interesting to note that more than most universities in the United States, it's always had open admissions, regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of religion. It's always been a very inclusive place. It's always been sort of working with that goal in mind. It's not always easy, as it is now in the United States, but we're certainly a place where we don't hide from, our social lives, and try to make the best of it, to try and construct and use this almost like a laboratory for creating a better world, whatever profession you might be looking at, whether it's in law, whether it's in communications, whether it's in politics, art, very good art school here too as well. And so, again, a very good liberal arts institution with very good professional schools. The School of Architecture is, by some accounts, the fourth oldest program in the United States. They started in the middle of the 19th century, only 3 years after the university was founded here in Syracuse. We've been in Slocum Hall a little over, well, just about 100 years. So we were in other buildings before that. Recently, I want to say recently, the last 15 years, we took over the entire building, and it's really the hub of our school, the hub of our life, both in an academic sense, but also in a cultural sense, in a kind of, how do you want to say, a social sense as well. So the school, as well as being connected to the rest of the university, is its own community as well. And I think it's a community that, again, from what I can tell, and I've been teaching here since 1994, that people are connected to their entire life. They're not just professional colleagues, but they become friends and, go to each other's family events and vacation together, as well as collaborate on projects and keep in touch. And it's a really, really wonderful thing that you get locked into when you come here. The curriculum is again, I said, a 5-year degree, and you'll notice that there are a series of arts and science courses, 45 credits, which is roughly, there's 3 semesters worth of full credits. And then the rest are other kinds of courses like studios, history and theory of architecture. Again, it's a global history and a global theories of architecture. Technologies such as structures, heating and air conditioning, other kinds of courses, professional courses, like, how to run a firm, but also we consider drawing as kind of professional skills. So we have a series of drawing classes, and then you might take a series of professional electives. The one thing that I think is really important here is this year, where we have a off-campus experience where, and again, I kind of left this out because we don't have as much time as I'd like, but we have a off-campus experience because we have a series of off-campus semesters, and nearly everybody goes on them in Florence, New York, or London. We also have some summer programs in East Asia. And this is one of the distinctive things about our curriculum. Again, you're going to get studios, you're going to get all these other categories up here, design, history, technologies, all that in other universities, but you probably won't have as developed a off-campus program. The other thing is that it ends in a kind of research semester into your final semester. And again, one of the things that's very important to us is that research is a key piece to any architect's training. You're not just learning how to be kind of reactive to things, but you're learning how to analyze things, develop them, synthesize them, and enfold them into your designs. And this last semester is a kind of capstone experience. I think this is very important. We have all 3 of our degrees are, and the one we're talking about, of course, is the Bachelor of Architecture today, but all 3 are certified STEM degrees. This is, of course, an advantage when applying for certain scholarships that are STEM based, but it also, I think, is very important for international students because it allows you to stay for 3 years beyond graduation, working in offices here. And if you wish to have a kind of career experience after your university experience. So I guess you would be here a total of 8 years in the US. And so this is a very important thing. Of course, the center of any architectural education is studio. It's a really interesting and unusual way to learn how to be to learn how to be what you're going to be. In this case, an architect. It's a very creative kind of class. You're given exercises about designing different things. You learn from your professors. You learn in formal presentations to professors and panels of experts, and you learn from each other informally. And I think this is a very important aspect of your education. And this is where really I think the friendships get built and are cemented that last your entire life. Just kind of quickly, what is Design Studio like? Well, we have a core sequence of studios, the first, second, and third, fourth year studios. In between the plus there is when you go to an off-campus center. You learn the fundamentals of good design in your first year, good proportion, good structure, good composition, things like that. And then you begin to apply these to more specific criteria like the site or particular kinds of programs or particular kinds of cultures. And then in the final sort of set of studios, you start to enfold in technical issues like structure, heating and air conditioning, life safety things, and things like that. Again, one of the most distinct things about our architecture program is our off-campus off-campus centers, and there you spend a semester either in Florence, London, or New York. And of course, we have a set of buildings there. Here's our studio near this building in Florence, which itself is like a classroom. And there, the students take your typical class, but you're also learning in unusual ways because you're actually getting to go into the city, meet professionals from those countries. Every other weekend, we're going to another city in that particular area. In the case of Italy, it would be Venice or Rome or maybe Milan. It's a little different each semester. So it's really an amazing experience. You take Italian. There are a lot of other informal activities to get you connected with Italian culture in this case. The same goes true for London. They have a different set of advantages, if you will. There it's a sort of high-tech center for design. You have firms like Norman Foster, our other really good high-tech firms. So we bring in people like that. We take advantage of that location. Of course, we go around and see the historical sites, both in London and in England, excuse me, and in Northern Europe, actually. Really a kind of network of things that you get connected to. So it's really not a travel. I mean, it's not a tourist experience. I always tell people, if you want to do this, if you just want to see things and go shopping and eat, then it's a lot cheaper to do that and just spend a semester in that town. It's better to go here and just, this is really a kind of educational experience, and you work hard. It's a very interesting semester, and it really, I think, is a distinctive experience for our students. And again, a very similar kind of center in New York. We have a wonderful facility in Midtown, the Fisher Center, near the Empire State Building. And again, we get engaged with issues that are happening in New York, real estate, things about climate change, other social issues. We bring in panels of experts. The studios are geared towards those kinds of issues. They go on field trips and do internships. It's really wonderful. 3 Cities is another program that we've had. The last few have been in East Asia. They move around a little bit every year. Last year it was in Tokyo, Shanghai, Hong Kong. And again, you go to buildings and in each one of those regions, and you meet architects in each one of those regions to see how the profession is organized in those areas, and have studio and coursework. So it's very, very interesting. As well as going to the world comes to us. We have in the alternate semester, when you're not traveling, we bring in outside critics, visiting critics. This pair, originally from Argentina, are now practicing in Los Angeles. And there, the students will learn about some ideas that are maybe particular to that practice. Certainly the faculty does. We like having them around. It keeps us on our toes, and really creates an opportunity for us too to kind of show off our great students. And a lot of them end up working for some of these firms. The other thing that I think is important is that we have a sort of shorter term visitors, shall we say, a lecture series that's really quite good and well funded. This is David Adjaye, the architect of the African American Museum on the Mall in Washington, D.C. It's probably his most famous building, but he's done a lot of other great buildings as well. And if you know anything about architecture, these are some of the heavy hitters now. The other thing I think that's really great about our lecture series is that We get people who are not quite famous yet. We get people who are just been out of school a few years that are trying interesting things, maybe sometimes even more interesting things. And it gives you an example of how you might move forward in those few years after school as you begin to build your practice and your reputation in architecture. So we really try to use the lecture series as a learning tool in many ways. The School of Architecture has a fantastic faculty and a fantastic staff. What can I say? They have a lot of different interests, the faculty. They come from a lot of different points of view. In some cases, I think that might seem overwhelming. We sort of give you smaller bites, particularly at the beginning, so you can get up and running. But as you get more comfortable with architecture and more curious about it and develop your own voice, you have a lot of different options. The staff, just what can I say? They help you do everything from helping you sign up for classes every semester to helping you get connected to different university services, whether they're health services, whether they're tutoring services, whether they're financial aid, all kinds of things. They could be helping you get involved with certain clubs. It's really an amazing group of people that have a diverse set of talents and interests and backgrounds too. So I think we really try hard to have people that are empathetic with all kinds of different experiences. Even if we might not understand it, we'll try to. And that's really, I think, the key. Just a couple of things to talk about here with our faculty. These are a couple of examples. This is Beth Kriedemeyer and Amber Bartosh, who work with sort of digital visualization lab, interactive design. And this is really an interesting thing where you look at sort of virtual reality and how that might affect architecture in different ways. We have other people that are interested in combining, it's called symbiotic superstructures, Daquan Park, looking at how structures doesn't just hold up a building, but can act as also something that contains the heating and air conditioning system of a building. We have a lot of small practices with some very interesting experimental work. Corso and Hunker have been doing these interesting public work projects in the last few years. Larson and Hubele have been working with the second largest concrete firm in the world, Cemex, and doing all kinds of experimental concrete things. And when I give you these examples, by the way, they get students involved in their own research work. So not only are you taking classes, but you have the opportunity to maybe work with some of these faculty in doing some kind of research. In this case, it's creating this kind of artificial mangrove type prototype for the shore of Colombia, South America, as sea levels change and start eroding the shore. We also have a fantastic career services department. And again, if you come back and visit one of our sessions, you'll be able to learn a little more about that. But whether they're career fairs or whether they're on-campus interviews, we connect to this really amazing network of professionals out there. A lot of them have been in Syracuse, but some of them have not. Our reputation goes beyond our community, but also getting you ready for that, whether it's your resume, your portfolio, how to purport yourself during a interview. All those are really important skills that we really try to help you with. Your fellow students are another amazing resource. We have all kinds of different organizations. Look at these four: peer advisors, architectural ambassadors, mentor squad, international mentor squad, because coming to the United States to college is an unusual thing for most people, and getting connected to that and making that transition is very important. And again, these are all here to help you in less formal ways get connected to the culture, the resources, the life of our school, and it's really wonderful. This is all produced, this culture, this kind of institutional world has created some pretty amazing people, alums. Nicole Doso here, who is actually one of my former thesis students, was a project architect for the World Trade Center in New York City. Annabelle Seldorf, another graduate of our programs here, is a wonderful architect. She does these beautifully elegant galleries and residential buildings, in particular in New York City. But people are also interested in all kinds of issues. Cook and Fox are, again, two graduates of architecture. Our program here have done this building and this building, the ones on either side of the Empire State Building, which are the two most important ecologically experimental buildings in New York City, and have gotten a lot of credit for that. So these are people that are interested in what we call green architecture. David Rockwell, if you're interested in sort of theatric architecture, he does a lot of sets for Broadway plays, but also theatrical environments like restaurants and things like that. Then if you're interested in sort of social equity issues, going in and helping, places that typically don't get good architectural thinking, but need it. We have people who do this as well. An alum, Charles Newman, is involved in different kinds of initiatives. In this case, in East Africa, developing sanitation infrastructure, looking at the architecture of that. All this combines, I think, to make for a fantastic reputation that we've had over the years. We're always seems to land in the top 5, one place or another, in terms of undergraduate programs in the United States. As a result, not only do we attract good students, we get good faculty as well. And so, that combination creates for a wonderful atmosphere for our students, very supportive because you're with other people who are really interested in architecture, really were good students when they were high school students. And just, if it might seem a little scary, but believe me, if you have the capacity to do it, the atmosphere here, you will be up for it. You'll figure it out very quickly, and you'll be really glad that you're in this more competitive atmosphere that really cultivates your talents, really cultivates your enthusiasm for architecture, and we really, really like that. Also, our other programs are ranked well, and we have loads of really good teachers, and some of them, including our dean, have been recognized for this as well. Sort of my last 2 slides here. What do I do to get ready? And again, we hope that you'll come to our more detailed presentations about our school and how you prepare for portfolio and how you work through the application. Dean Bacchina is very good at this. Draw, design, think. Always draw. If you haven't started drawing, start now. If you don't have an art program, maybe try and sign up for art lessons or get a book like Betty Edwards' book, Drawing with the Right Side of Your Brain, and do the exercises, but start drawing. This is really one of the most important aptitudes that you need to be a good architect. As in any field, read, get familiar with it. Go to your local library, read books. Maybe you have to order a few books. We have a wonderful reading list on our website. And of course, visit architecture, going into built environments. And there are a lot of exciting ones in India, I think. Is really, I think, one of the most important things you can do. Walking through space in time, through good buildings, whether you like them or not, actually, sometimes, I think is a really important thing to get in the habit of doing. So if you have the opportunity on a nice day to do that, that's great to do. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions, and